I asked Nathaniel from last week's conversation. He talked a little bit about art theory. And I know that's maybe like a slightly foreign concept to a lot of people, but I think it really helped me when he kind of showed me this is the style of designs and kind of the psychology behind it. And it was very interesting to me. I think because of your background, wanting to do marketing, wanting to do other things, it's given you a depth of knowledge. I asked Nathaniel to put a presentation together, and that's what I wanted to do this Monday, is just have you go through your presentation and explain design theory.
I just want to touch on something that somebody told me a long time ago that has helped me develop like my design skills. And it's to think about like design as a muscle. So just like any other muscle of your body, like if you go to the gym and you work out that muscle, it's going to get bigger. So I've just dedicated a lot of time of being in the gym for design by watching a bunch of YouTube content and taking online classes and just trying to soak up as much information, reading books on it, like all of these things, just like pouring into this passion that I have. And that's why I understand design the way that I do. It's not just because of, I was born with this gift or by osmosis of someone that I was close to, like they just, gave me all of this information. It was really just me being intrigued by this world and spending a lot of time, like I said, soaking in content from all sorts of places. It's nothing like you're just born with this, or it's not impossible for anyone to learn these things. It just takes the time to soak in some of this content and be trying all the things on your by yourself, while you're learning, and just trying to push yourself as well to design higher quality things and more detailed and faster and all of that. It's definitely, I just wanted to clear that up. Like, don't feel like you can't do this. It's just you have to take the time and practice is really what it comes down to.
That reminded me of the Allen Iverson practice. Talk about
Talk
practice.
about practice.
What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice.
I just wanted to drive home that point that Nathaniel said. I do believe anybody can do this, no matter what skill level you have.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm good at, is maybe simplifying some of the things. It's, again, something we're going to talk about in just a second, is how to simplify some of these like bigger ideas like balance and all these things that you want in your designs, and give the same confidence that I gave Steven, where he feels like he could go out and do this himself. That's really what I want for everybody, is like, oh, I can do this. That's the feeling I want you to have. So hopefully me explaining my thought process behind design theory, and specifically for print-on-demand world, for apparel and things like that, is just another boost in your confidence that you guys can definitely do this. Steven asked me to talk about art this week, and I was like, the only way for me to really talk about it is to show examples. So I pulled a few of my presentations and put some extra information that I've been mulling over in there as well. So if you've seen some of these presentations, know that there is some new content in there as well. But I want to make it so that you guys understand like what makes good t-shirt art. At least that's my hope for today. So Steven, if you have anything, we can talk about it. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and just do like a little presentation and kind of run through some thoughts that I've been having.
Go for it.
So this is going to be my POD art theory. This is not like the beefiest presentation in the world. I don't want to take 2 hours of your guys' time. So I just wanted to cover some like basic thoughts and really just the questions I get the most. And I have done like account reviews and helped people with their art. And so just combining all of that knowledge into hopefully about 30 minutes of content for you guys to give you, again, just that confidence to move forward and understand the art world as far as the print-on-demand customers. I was going to say Amazon specific, but this could be used for any platform, but kind of the people online who are looking to buy apparel for the types of designs that we make and that we have found success with. With the first question that I get quite a lot, definitely when we were at a lot of the conferences and traveling around, a lot of people were asking me like, what makes art good, or what is good art? Those are kind of two different variations of that same question, and that is very subjective. So we usually answer it in kind of like the wingman way, which is like, do everything, do both, to just test it out and see what works. But that really is true for print on demand, where every niche that you go after, every results page that you see can be slightly differently. So what makes art good is, in my eyes, if it sells or not. Everyone's art taste can be a little bit different, the styles that they like, or the artist that they follow and really enjoy the way that they create art. But for us, we're not so much worried over like people's personal opinions or even trying to put like our own personal bias into this. What we're really trying to do is look at the market, what's selling, and that makes a good piece of artwork for us because, again, we're trying to run a business, not necessarily get our art hung up in museums or anything like that. So that's kind of my perspective on what makes art good, at least for the print-on-demand business, is what is currently selling.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in now. I had a different vision for this, but I see that you're very excited. So I'm going to let you kind of just run wild with this. Anytime that I feel maybe you're getting a little off topic, and then if I feel a place that I can interject, I will do that. But just so you don't feel like you're waiting on me at any point.
Yeah, so I'm going to apologize as well right now if I'm speaking a little bit faster than normal. I do like art, and these are questions that we've answered kind of all over the place. So yeah, but getting into, again, specifically for print on demand, what I have seen make art good is kind of summed up into 3 words, and that is bold, clean, and simple. And this has been my mantra for the last 4 years that I've been designing and teaching people about print on demand. It's just to keep things bold, clean, and simple. And while these are simple words, I do want to show like visuals behind each one and what they mean to me. But we talked about this last week, and I this is something I've kind of like blocked out of my mind because it was a hard conversation to have with Stephen. But when Stephen really started helping me, this is what he made clear to me, that you know, I was kind of over designing some things or taking too long on some pieces of artwork where we're really just trying to test the market. So especially when you're first starting out and trying to figure out what makes art good by, you know, putting your art in different areas and seeing what markets react to it, these words are extremely helpful. So as you're designing, especially as you're starting, like instead of flexing your muscles of I can do all of this stuff in the art tools, and Spark makes it so easy to add all these cool images and things, but just remembering to like keep things bold, clean, and simple because well, there's a lot of reason behind it, but we'll get into it by starting with why bold, clean, and simple designs. And I kind of explain this, but specifically it's because on Amazon you want to stand out. So having something that's attention grabbing does help a lot, because we're not only designing for t-shirts that you're going to wear around, you know, wherever you're going, but also we have to design for the little thumbnails that are on Amazon, because that's people's first interaction with your art or their first impression of your art. So you want it to be attention grabbing, but you also want it to be easy to understand. So those two things work well together, it being attention grabbing and easy to understand. And so you can achieve that by keeping your designs bold, clean, and simple. But really the easy to understand is, again, you want it to grab their attention, but then you don't want to confuse them. So you're not just trying to put like a giant pink block on the shirt. And so it's like the very attention grabbing, but as soon as they see that, they're like, I'm confused by this, I'm going to just scroll on past. And so keeping it easy to understand is like you're going to grab their attention and then they get exactly what that design is meant to do. So that works really well for an online website where you're trying to like catch their attention as they're scrolling, but also in public as someone's wearing the shirt. I have found a few awkward encounters where I've put like a ton of detail on a shirt and then people just want to like stare at you and try to figure out like what's going on here. Like you grab my attention with these bright colors and this cool design, but now I'm like stuck trying to figure out exactly what I'm looking at. So for t-shirts in general, whether you're designing them for an online marketplace or not, keeping things easy to understand so someone can just glance at you and then keep on walking by is just a good thing to remember. So that's a little theory of why I choose to keep all of my designs bold, clean, and simple.
Yeah, I guess it reminds me of the websites that were like when the internet was new. All the websites had like crazy HTML. It was like all kinds of stuff was flashing and dancing all over the place. I guess it was like everybody's trying to grab your attention, but it's too much going on. I think it worked back then because websites were extremely new.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why now t-shirt art has come such a long way. There is a path that t-shirt design has gone on. It's been, we talked about a little bit from the 10,000 foot view stance, like Mickey, Disney started kind of the t-shirt production business where he was putting things on. It was just a very simple one color thing because that's what the technology allowed. And then as soon as the technology got a little better, then it was like all kinds of stuff was being thrown at the t-shirts in the 60s and 70s. They were all kinds of crazy. Now I think it's gone back to a simpler, more modern design where it's like what Nathaniel's saying, bold, clean, simple seems to work. This is kind of what's in the market. This is what we're seeing that's working. And this is what we're trying to give you as an basic design theory to help you not get stuck where I can't design this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think Nathaniel's going to show some extremely simple, anybody can do these styles that will help you get the confidence you need to then start designing and putting things out into the market. And you are just putting things on the market to test.
It's funny that you brought up like those old designs of the 90s, because I think we're kind of in a backswing right now where those like weird, absurd designs are coming back with like super bright colors. But my personal taste is still like very simplistic, like very minimalistic design, where it's like you have to kind of take a second to glance at it to see what it is, but if you don't, then you're just gonna like walk on by and be like, I didn't see anything on that shirt. And so that's kind of my own personal bias, but I've found that that works in a few niches that we sell in. So not all of my designs are like that, but the ones that I'm a little bit more interested in, and with like my own personal hobbies and things, like I found those designs work. So knowing your customer, I think at the end of the day, is the most important thing. But we have found it's easiest to test markets when you're trying to break into them with bold, clean, and simple design. So let's jump back into this presentation, and we're going to be talking about bold designs next. So bold designs, here are 3 examples, and hopefully you guys can see which one is bold, but just which one stands out and is easy to read. That's really what we're trying to get to here. So this first design on the left-hand side is not bold. These are like thin lines. While the design looks okay, it's not really going to stand out or be able to be seen if the background is not something just like a plain white background like this is. So I would not say that is bold, and I would throw a big X over that to kind of cancel that out of your mind. Now this next one, the one in the middle here, while it's bigger and it takes up a little bit more space, the lines are still pretty thin and it could be lost in some other designs. I'm going to show you some examples of designs later, and a text like this would very easily be lost if you try to do anything behind it. And again, that would just cause confusion, both for people looking at it on Amazon or whatever website you're selling on, but also when you're wearing this shirt in public or whatever design in public, it would just get lost and be hard to understand, so it causes some confusion. So we don't want to do that. So again, throwing a big X over that so you don't even think about it. But this last example on the right-hand side here is bold. The lines are nice and thick. It's easy to read, excuse me, because of like the spacing and everything's clear. The quality of it is good. And so all of those things make it bold, easy to understand. And so that is the first, theory or a word that I want you guys to keep repeating as you're designing, which is bold, and then we'll move on to clean. So clean designs, here are 3 examples. Once again, we're going to stick with this theme of what would be clean designs, or at least one of these is a clean design. This font is, I was working with a client and I was actually, sorry, so the font on the left-hand side, I was working with a client as they were looking at my computer, and they saw this font on my computer and they're like, why in the world is that on your computer? I was like, oh, I created this presentation a while ago and was showing like, this is what not to do. So this font on the left-hand side is not clean at all. So the lettering is okay, but all the extra stuff that came with this font, the balloons and the streamers and all of that, like that just makes it very messy, and is probably something I should remove from my computer at this point if I'm going to be working with more clients. So it's just a funny font that might be appropriate for like a birthday card, but definitely wouldn't be something I would put on a shirt. So this next font, the one in the middle here, while it is bold, it's easy to see as far as like the lettering and the spacing goes, it's actually really blurry. And this is something that I've seen a couple people who are just new to designing. They design in the wrong size, and then they try to blow up the image or expand out the image so it would look good on a shirt. And then this ends up happening where the pixels just get all fuzzy and it's hard to see, and then when it prints it looks really bad on shirts as well. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're designing. Know what size design you have to make before you put anything on the artboard, because otherwise resizing it can make things look really weird and unclear. So that is just my tip, and so that's definitely not a clean design. A clean design is this example on the right hand side, same text that we used as the bold text, but this is just to show you that the quality of this is high and there's no extra crazy balloons and streamers going around in this font. It's just straight to the point. You can read this kind of from any distance or angle and people aren't going to be confused by it. So moving on to the last word of my little mantra of bold, clean, and simple is the word simple. And so here are 3 examples. 2 of them are not simple and 1 of them is simple. And so again, we're going to start on the left-hand side with this one that's multicolored. And while this can work for some logos like Google, this is not something I would suggest. Usually for my designs, I try to keep them under 3 colors, if not just 2. So while the font looks fine and it's clean and it's bold, it's not simple because of all the colors that it's added. And so again, that can just cause some confusion. And these colors in no way look good to me. Maybe if you're doing some type of clown or very Eastery thing, maybe. But for the most part, I would say stick to 3 colors for your designs and try not to use too many different colors, at least on one word. It looks very strange and again, just causing some confusion. And so this is kind of the counter part to that, which is using too many fonts, especially in one word, unless your design is specifically calling for it. This is not a design style that I would try to use because it's not simple. It's a very complicated, very hard to read, this word simple here in the middle. So just too much going on here. And so again, on the right-hand side, the third example is simple. This is just one font, one color, not too much going on here. Again, we're just trying to create something that's easy to be read, and can be seen at any distance or angle. And that really is accomplished by this font, keeping it all one font and all one color.
Yeah, I guess that first example, it had multicolors in it. Do you have any suggestions if they want to add multiple colors?
So color is the thing that I'm personally weakest at. If you are using the tool that we've been talking a lot about, Adobe Spark, then there is color palettes built in. But even if you're not using that tool, I don't know, should I pop out here and talk about this? But there is another tool that has been like a lifesaver for me.
You can do it now, or if you feel like it fits later on.
All right, I'll show it a little bit later on because we're in a flow of the presentation here, but I will definitely show that tool as kind of a bonus at the end because it's made by Adobe, big surprise, but it has been a lifesaver for me because color is something I definitely struggle with. So I'm glad you pointed that out, but we will talk about that at the end of this presentation. So the next slide is talking about the font that I've chosen to use for my example of bold, clean, and simple, and it's called Impact. And so I found this funny meme, is why does every meme use this font? And kind of memes and t-shirts kind of share the same identity of just wanting to be easy to be read and used at any distance. And so if it's good enough for a meme, then I think it's good enough for shirts. But this is kind of the idea of you don't necessarily have to use Impact on every shirt, and I highly suggest you don't just use Impact on every shirt. But if you're just starting out and looking for a good font, it's a great font to use. But just this idea of trying to find something that's bold, clean, and simple so that people can easily understand it, read it in a quick glance, and kind of move on with their day. You know, memes aren't, there might be a museum of memes out there, but for the most part, memes are just things that we send each other, you know, via email or a text or whatever, and just kind of glanced at, laughed at, and then moved on. And that's kind of my feeling for how t-shirts should be used as well. Just kind of glanced at, laughed at, whatever emotion it's supposed to embark, and then you kind of move on with your day. To prove that you don't just have to use Impact as the only font that you can use to keep things bold, clean, and simple, I pulled a bunch of logos or logos that I personally think keep things bold, clean, and simple. So these are from major corporations that they're trying to just have a logo that is easy to identify, easy to read, and can be seen at any distance. So here are a few examples, but we're going to jump into a few, 3 of them to be exact, that I personally think exude this bold, clean, and simple mantra very well. So this first one is Amazon, a company that has been awesome the last couple of years for us, and their logo is awesome as well. I have really greatly appreciated this because of the little line that they added here that does 2 things. One, it points out that they sell everything from A to Z, which is a cool little nod to what they do, but also they have this smiley face, if you can see it like that, showing that they keep the customers happy. And so while this logo is, you know, 2 colors, it's just a simple font, and there's nothing too crazy going on here, there is still a deeper meaning. So logos like this are my personal favorite. I really love this type of design, and this is the same type of thing that I'm trying to do on my shirts. Not make it overly complicated, not make it hard to read, but still have some meaning and easy to look at and enjoy. So the next one I want to look at is Google. They just went with a straight font, nothing too complicated here, but what they did is they wanted to stand out with the colors that they were using and make the colors really stick in people's head. One interesting fact about these colors is that they're all primary except for this green color, and they did that, and I've read their little like logo briefing or their logo case study that they have done, and it's to show that they're like rebels. They're not afraid to do things a little bit differently and break some rules. You think that they're going to stick to just kind of basic colors, but they're willing to go out of their way and innovate in new ways. I think that's the word that they used. So that's what this green L is showing, that they're willing to innovate. So if you first look at this, you're just like, cool, they picked a bunch of random colors, but then digging into it a little deeper, you can see there's some complexity there. So again, keeping things bold, clean, and simple, but adding some complexity, some depth to this to make the design mean a little bit more, not only to the company, but to those people who enjoy their company and want to dig in and be nerdy like me and understand why they threw that green color in there. So this next logo is Airbnb, not a company that's been around as long as Amazon or Google, but they have a very cool logo that I've come to appreciate over the years. At first, it just kind of looks like a pretty weird and cursive A, but when you break this down, this was, again, in their logo brief or their logo case study, and it's to show that these three things are all coming together. Really, four things are all coming together. So it's the people that are happy with their hands up, the place, this little like geographical logo tag thing that's come to be a logo that we can all recognize. Love, because of the heart emoji or icon here, and then Airbnb with the large A. So they've worked all of those things into this design, but it's just one seamless line. So they're not trying to mash a bunch of images together. They've just found a way to present this in a very bold, clean, and simple way, which I very much enjoy. And I know I said that we were only going to do 3 logos, but this one is my absolute favorite, so I had to throw it in here at the end. And this is the Apple logo. While I'm not really the biggest Apple fanboy, I am a huge fanboy of their logo and really appreciate it, because this is when I really started to figure out what good design rules were, like the golden ratio and all these things. And Apple, while again, this design looks bold, clean, and simple, it doesn't seem like there's much to it. When you start to break it down and look at all the rules that it follows, it's extremely pleasing to the eye to look at, but also, like I said, follows the golden ratio and all of these different design rules while coming off as bold, clean, and simple. So like if I could achieve something like this on my shirts, I'm extremely happy. I don't know if I've ever created something to this depth, but this is something that I love to go back to and just look at how they've incorporated all these different rules into their logo while keeping it just very bold and in your face. It's one color, it's 2 shapes just all smashed together, but in such an interesting and complex way. But when you're just looking at it, you can glance at it from any distance, any angle, and know that that is the Apple company. All right, so trying not to get too far off into the deep end of design theory and what my personal biases are and how I like to design, I want to bring this all back to print on demand and how does this information actually affect you as a person who's trying to create print on demand designs. And for this first one, I wanted to look at these 2 examples and show you guys that the first impression on a website really, really does matter. So if you look at this first example on the left-hand side, it doesn't get much more bold, clean, or simple than this. This is a font that says feed, or this is a shirt that says feed me. It's in a pretty simple font. It's in one color. There's not a whole lot going on here. But in contrast to that, there's this design over here on the right-hand side that says basically the same thing in more words. Feed me pizza and tell me I'm pretty. But there's lots of colors going on here. And when we look at the 2 kind of at a close-up glance like this, I would say that the design inside of this one on the right is actually better. Like they've taken time to actually design something compared to this one on the left, which it could be debatable whether this is even a design or not. Maybe this is just text on a shirt. And so having that perspective and having my own personal bias into this is what we're trying to show to you guys, that you maybe should remove that. And the way that I want to prove that is by looking at what these look as listings on Amazon. So these are 2 shirts that were on Amazon, and the first impressions matter so much because when you look at them a little bit farther away, this feed me pizza and tell me I'm pretty starts to get lost a little bit. The white on this crazy background is kind of hard to see at a distance, and this design is altogether, there's just a lot going on. So it might attract people's attention, but you might lose that immediately when they get confused of exactly what that shirt says. And even this is a little bit blown up. Like you got to remember that people are looking at these designs sometimes on their phone, where it's like multiple designs on their phone at one time. It's not just like they're staring at your one shirt, but also on like a computer screen or whatever, where they can have this sized way down. And so it can become even more confusing when you put too much in a design, especially for print on demand. And so this one on the left that just says feed me me, there's no mistaking what this is. It's a clear and it's a bold, clean, and simple design that's going to stand out. That is proven here in the sales and the BSRs here. So if we look at this, the shirt is selling for $19.99, and it has a rank of 164,000, which means it's probably selling a couple times a week, if not multiple times a day. And this one over here on the right-hand side is, while it's priced even lower than this one on the left, it has no rank, which means it actually has not sold yet. So while the person definitely took longer to make this design, think about it, think about what colors they wanted, and pull in all these different elements and try to line this up so it's nice and balanced. This person on the left literally typed "feed me," uploaded it, and they're having more success. So that is the power of keeping things bold, clean, and simple, and not over designing. Now, I'm saying this theory, and I wanted to warn you guys that like this does not work across the board for every niche ever. But if what you're going after is kind of humor and just kind of the design theory behind all of this is keeping things easy to be read on your shirts, and so not over designing either. But you really do have to let your customer speak. Maybe in another niche, this one would have worked better, but this person has found that just putting text on a shirt is kind of the way to go. So testing those things out, testing out this design is a lot faster and easier than testing out something like this. If this design did work, then you could go back and do details, but that's doubling down and another presentation for another time. So let's keep moving forward and just look at this is just one row, but this was the results page that these two shirts were on. And as you can see there, most of the designs here are just pretty straightforward, and they're not even that easy to read. Like white on light blue is not a great color combination, and you can see the BSR here is not selling. But for the most part, Amazon has seen that customers want just text on a shirt here. They don't want something that's overly designed anyways. So I doubt that if you went back and looked for the shirt, you could even find it at this point. You would probably see a lot of designs that are just text, and some of them are working, but this one that's the simplest, the boldest, and the cleanest is standing out and outselling all of them. Okay, so hopefully you guys are sticking with me through all of that, and you're pulling some confidence out of that and understanding, so that when you go to design, you're going to keep things bold, clean, and simple. And this is the new section, so sorry if I'm stumbling a little bit more through my words here, but I do want to talk about design balance, as I found that that's extremely important when making print-on-demand designs. And as I, again, have helped people over the years, this is something that I've seen people struggle with, is just understanding what makes a good shirt as far as balance goes. So I'm going to show a few examples. But the first thing I want to do is show how this is taught in schools, where at least a course that I took in design balance, this was the exact sheet that they showed of balance versus tension, and how to properly align your designs and think about designs as far as balance versus tension, and what the theories on all of this are. Now, I am not going to attempt to even teach this style, because it's just a lot of complicated theory that I don't think is 100% necessary for print on demand, and I have found a way to simplify this, at least for myself, and I hope that this helps you guys as well. And the way that I have simplified this is thinking about badge design. Badges are a very popular style of design, so there's a million examples out there, and I really like badges because they contain your designs in pretty simple shapes and sizes. Those sizes will work on kind of anything, whether you're making an actual patch that's going to get printed out, or you want this to be the full size of a t-shirt, like 15 inches. Like, these designs will kind of work wherever. But these shapes, or the containers that you're putting your designs in, really help keep things balanced. So if we look at this example of this elk down here, this elk is a little bit of an awkward shape. The design is amazing. I really like this design. But if you were just to stick this on a shirt, there'd be kind of all this blank area over here. And it kind of works because the elk's looking this way, but just from a pure symmetry standpoint, you're going to see more of the design over here on the right hand side than you will on the left, which makes it unbalanced. But by putting it in the simple rectangle, then everything's perfectly balanced, because you have this container to hold everything. So if you're looking for a way to keep things balanced, if this is something that you don't quite understand, finding a good badge design that you can take inspiration from, or just the simple idea of put your designs inside of a shape to contain them, to keep things more symmetrical and evenly balanced, so that when people look at your design, it doesn't seem like it's weighted on one side or the other or awkward. This is a fairly simple way to do this, but there can also be a lot of complexity here. So I have personally been practicing doing badge designs for the last couple of years. I think I've gotten a little bit better, but there's so much in this style that you can do that it's kind of limitless. But to get started, it can be as easy as make a triangle, make the design inside of a triangle. So I think this is a great place to start, and just to simplify this whole conversation of keeping things balanced. Now, if you're still struggling with that, if you don't know how to design badges or want to take the time to do that, I did want to show off kind of the three most popular design styles that I have seen for merch by Amazon that I think still achieve bold, clean, and simple, and also achieve balance. And so this first one here, just pretend that this is on a t-shirt and this is the layout here. If you're creating, this is the space that it gives you. And so keeping things pushed up towards the top and the neckline, that's great because then it's going to be printed on the chest. But keeping things bold, clean, and simple, but also balanced in this style is a really great way to get across your idea and make the shirt easier to wear out in public. So this smiley face can be whatever logo you want, but you can see I put it in a square here as to symbolize like some type of badge design, and then putting text over here on the right-hand side. So just some quick balance theory. This doesn't look 1000% symmetrical if you drew a line, but the idea here is that this is going to be slightly bigger than, taller rather, than the text that you put on, and the text will be slightly longer. So there is actually still some balance inside of this design. But if you don't want to process that information, that's cool. Just remember to keep your logo over here on the left-hand side, make it slightly taller than your text, and make your text slightly longer than your design, and you'll be good. This next one, the second example I wanted to show is you can just use text to make balanced designs. But what this is, and if you're using Spark, it actually does some of this for you. It's called Capitalize and Fit. And this is a design style that I've used a lot when I just have a saying that I want to put on a shirt. But instead of just, making every font size the same, or just making all the lines, exactly the same width, and the letter spacing all the same, this is just a good way to change some of that up while still just using text and making something that is bold, clean, and simple, but also balanced. So just thinking about where like the natural pauses are in the sentence and using that to emphasize some of the words in this design is a good way to, again, keep things bold, clean, and simple, but also balanced. And this last one here is kind of the athletic style of things, and I've used this one quite a bit myself for different areas. It doesn't have to just be sports related, but using this text over the top that's slightly arched, and then some type of graphic here in the middle with the year 2020, and then more text here at the bottom has been a really good way for me to get my ideas across, connect with the customers that I have in that niche, but also keeping things bold, clean, and simple, and fairly balanced, straight down the middle. You can kind of cut this and it's perfectly symmetrical, which is nice. So those are just 3 quick ways that you can make your designs bold, clean, and simple, but also keeping them balanced. So hopefully these 3 will be used by you guys, and that this will make the design process, at least starting off, a little bit easier. So you can just think about the ideas that you want to get across and maybe how they will, exactly what colors and things you'll be using, but the layout won't be such a struggle, as that can be something that does make or break some good t-shirt designs. So that is the end of this presentation and what I have for you guys. But before I even let Steven get a breath in, I want to remember that we talked about that color tool. And so I do want to show that off. So the website that I just went to is color.adobe.com. And this brings you straight to the create tool, or tab rather, in this website. But what I am normally using is the explore tab, or the trends. And so what this is doing is it's just showing you a bunch of color palettes. So like I said, color is something that I definitely struggle with as a graphic designer, but this website is basically my go-to immediately when I know I'm creating a new project and I need some color theme, or if I'm using more than one color, that's really what I'm coming to this website for, where I can see colors that are going to look good together. Again, this is Adobe's knowledge baked in here, which they are the industry leaders in, so they kind of know what they're doing, and so that's why I come to this website in particular. It's color.adobe.com, and so just real quickly, I wanted to show that off. They also have a trends tab, which is really nice. Took a second to load there, but this is current trend colors that they see are popular. So lots of blues and purples this year, as they've deemed that blue is the color of the year here in the Explore tab, or rather Pantone has deemed that classic blue is the color of the year. So that's why you're seeing lots of blue color palettes here. But there is so much here. So if you need something, you come here to the Explore tab, type in exactly what color you're looking for, and that will help you a lot with the color scheme. But again, try to keep things to just 3 colors. Yeah, and like I said, I apologize at the beginning if that was a lot of information. I hope that I didn't overwhelm anybody. My true heart is to give you guys the confidence to go out and do this for yourselves. But we did have a question of the week. You talk about Photoshop, Illustrator, and Spark a lot, which are all Adobe products, I'm aware. But the question is, which one do I use the most? And it really depends on what I'm trying to do at the moment. Photoshop is still the one that's closest to my heart, so I love using Photoshop. But Spark is probably one that, if I'm being completely honest, the one I'm using most for print on demand right now, because it allows me to get the ideas out of my head and into the world the quickest. And then Illustrators, anytime I'm really feeling artsy and want to create something either for a bigger size, like we've just created some banners that were massive and I used Illustrator, or if I like really want to create my own elements that I'm going to use in certain designs, that's when I open up Illustrator. Again, I'm much better at showing you guys than just talking about it. So maybe next week, if Steven gives me some more time, I will actually show you like how I create something inside of Photoshop versus how I create it inside of Spark. And just to show you guys, like, yes, it is a free tool, but it is very capable of creating the type of designs that I personally am making for our print on demand, just to test things out. And so maybe I can do a side-by-side comparison of those two, which I think would be an interesting video. So if Steven gives me some time, we can do that next week. But for this week, I think we're going to wrap things up. I do have something that we've been working on in the background, just because this is another one of those questions that we get quite often, is like, how exactly do I use Spark? I've gone as far as to like jump on Zoom with some people just to walk them through it. And so we did it was thoughtfully put together a course about how to just create text-based designs inside of Spark. We're going to keep the price on that fairly low, as we're trying out some new things on our website we're excited about. So if you guys are interested in that, I know this is kind of a weak push for this, but it's really just something that we're trying to put together to help you guys to answer some questions. And so if you would check out the description down below, if you want to get started with Spark, but you feel a little bit overwhelmed by even just the setting up the process and the understanding like the artboard from the toolbox and all of that. I try to explain those things the best that I could, and it will be something that we're building on in the future as well. So it's going to grow. But if you want to get into that, check that out. It's going to be just a couple dollars, and the link will be down below for that. But until next week, I'll probably talk about that course a little bit more, talk about the tool a little bit more, but we'll see you guys around.
Take it easy.